and thank for all the coaches for tuning in. And I love this great profession of coaching and everything that we can do for our kids. I'm going to go ahead and get into my presentation. So a little bit about me first. Obviously, I'm the head football coach at Frederick High School here in Lexington, Kentucky. I recently became the head football coach at the end of February. I've been here for the last 3 years. Our first year of high school for this particular high school, it's a new high school in Lexington, was 2017. I was one of the first hires from our former head coach, Brian Landis, which is now the linebacker coach at Georgia State in Atlanta. He had came from college for 12 years to take the Frederick Douglass job, and outstanding football coach, and had an opportunity to take that position, and we wish him well. And I became the head football coach at the end of February. I have been the offensive coordinator the last 3 years. So it's an easier transition for me, and thankful that our admin gave me this position to continue on in our program. I've been an offensive line coach for 16 years. Every year that I've coached football, I've coached offensive line. I enjoy it. I played it for a long time. Played it in college and had a chance to have an opportunity to play for the Green Bay Packers in 2004. So I've played a lot of offensive line my entire life, always willing to learn and grow in the profession. But I know it pretty well, I feel like, and all the little pieces that you have to coach it. My cell phone number is listed there. You can call or text me anytime that you want to talk ball, or if you need anything. That is my school email, and then that is my Twitter account. I have an Instagram, but it's hard for me to keep up with all of that. I mainly do it just to monitor our kids, but some of our other staff members are more Instagram people, so I kind of rely on them to do that. A little bit about our program. We are going into year 4. We are 35-5 the first 3 years, had a lot of success. Our staff is one of the better football staffs I've been on. They're very dedicated, like many of you guys are, getting up this early and talking with me. And we were the 2019 state championship runner-up. Got beat 14-7 by a private school up by Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area, Covington Catholic. They're a nationally ranked program pretty much year in and year out. I think they've lost 1 game in 4 years. It was a great game, but they had a kid going to Notre Dame that was a little bit better than anybody else on the field. 2019, we were the regional title champions. 2018-19, we were the district title champions. And then we've been our city champions all 3 years. We have yet to lose a city game. We are 18-0 against all the city teams in 3 years, and we want to continue doing that. We want to continue with our success. We've had some Division I football players in our program the first 3 years, and we have several this year and in the following 2 years. So we're blessed with some talent. Getting them going in the right direction and not overcoaching is important. All right, so I want to get into just the overall run offensive line piece, and then we can take questions at the end. Some of this stuff, if you're familiar with Charles Bentley and the offensive line performance, a lot of this may sound familiar, but it's really something that I've studied over the last 4 to 5 years that I really like and believe in. And it's a little bit different than how I was coached back in the day, but there is some similarities. It's just a little bit about the terminology and trying to be a little bit safer with the offensive line. So some of you may have heard of this, some of you may have not, but again, we could take any questions that you have after. I want to start with what I believe in, and that is the Kinetic Chain. And the Kinetic Chain is one that I've used many times on various articles, And it simply means that the human body is connected and affected by all the nearby muscles, joints, and tendons. So like many of you, I have a strength coach at Douglas, but like many of you, you probably run your strength programs. And there are some things that linemen, overall strength-wise in your workouts need to do with the other team. But there are going to be some specific things that they need to be doing, all right, to make sure that they're ready for their season and they're ready to compete in their specific drills to get them ready. Because offensive linemen are doing things that are unnatural. All right. And I talk about our kids all the time. We're trying to get in positions that are very uncomfortable comfortably. So you're trying to train your body for those 3 to 5 seconds to be in positions that your body isn't okay with. So I think that starts with training in the weight room and a mentality, and also your kids understanding kind of how that chain works. So here's what I mean by the kinetic chain. This is from the ground up, which is the most important piece to me, from the ankle and the ankle mobility. All right. So this chain, as you see here, works from, all right, toe to head or head to toe. But in offensive line play, you should focus a lot, all right, on this part right here with ankle mobility and knee mobility. All right. And then it works up to your hips. All right. Because if all this is aligned properly, all right, then you're not going to have, number one, a lot of upper body injuries like low back injuries. You're going to keep your chest protected and you're going to keep your neck protected. So we spend a lot of time, and I'll get into this, all right, but really working on the lower body half of not only, all right, the weight room piece like all of you, but also in the way that we approach our daily drills. So this all needs to be connected, all right, for a offensive lineman, whether you're 170 pounds or you're 330, all this is going to be aligned to each individual kid. You know, back when I was being coached, it was, you know, try to get your nose as low as you can to the ground, fire out. And there's a little bit of point to that. But a 6'5" kid, low to them and having mobility and your kinetic chain, all right, aligned properly is going to be a little different than the kid that is 5'10". All right. As long as you have these pieces and this chain connected, and I'm going to get into what that looks like, then I think you have a chance to be successful with all 5 guys, all right, moving with your offensive line. And really the same if you have tight ends in the game. So if there's an issue with ankle mobility that will work itself up the chain to the knee, all right, and the hip and so on. So offensive line is always played from the ground up. I think a lot of your coaching cues, in my opinion, always need to be related to the ground up. All right. So maybe instead of saying get your foot down, all right, you say I'm going to drive through the turf, or I'm going to drive through the ground. I say that a lot with our cleats. So I want to really stomp my cleats through the ground like I'm trying to implant them into the ground. So just little coaching points like that from the ground up, I think can really help your offensive lineman and get them thinking. When a blocker is attempting to drive a defender off the ball, the hips need to go into extension in order to generate movement. If the ankles are tight, pad level will prematurely rise, and the range of motion in the ankle, knee, and hip will be compromised. This is what you see in a lot of kids that don't step with that ground mentality up. So they'll automatically raise up, try to block with their chest, and that's when you get into low back injuries. That's when you get into leverage issues, and that's when you get into offensive linemen that are not very successful on Friday nights. All right. What I'm going to focus on is kind of unpacking those terms as he plays too high and poor pad level, when really it boils down to that kinetic chain. Ankle mobility is a key component that good offensive line coaches look at in correcting and developing their offensive linemen. So like young kids that maybe don't start lifting weights, really work on ankle flexion, you know, really work on your feet. really work on stretching, taking a band and working on that ankle mobility and hips and all things that I was never taught at a young age. I think this stuff and this study has really come along with offensive line play. I'm a big drive catch phase guy. That's kind of what Charles Bentley uses with offensive line performance. Those words are kind of used for what I learned when I was playing, kind of like a 6-inch punch step or an 8-inch or, toe to heel type step. And again, those are doing things that you're not very comfortable with as a human being that you have to train your mind for. The drive catch phase is a term referred to the initial movement of tackles and guards. Centers are going to use more of a drive pull where they kind of protect their snap hand if they're a right or left hand snap. They have to get that offhand up into the drive block, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, to get out of their stance at the snap. So they're kind of using a little bit more of a drive pull technique versus a drive catch for your tackles and your guards. The drive catch technique allows for maximum efficiency in terms of the 8 angles in which offensive line travel. So when you set up your offensive line drills, and this is something we can discuss after I finish, but how many of you are working the 8 angles of dominance? You may have heard of this before, you may have not, but offensive linemen are only going to work in 8 different directions depending on the play that you call. And not to get too academic, but it's something that's pretty easy, I think, for kids to understand, and that is the 8 angles of offensive line play. And the 8 angles of offensive line play are a simple compass rose. And again, I can't take credit for this. This is offensive line performance, but it makes a lot of sense to me. You're only working in those angles in a game. And what angle that you're trying to dominate is depending upon the play that you call. All right. So, a lot of coaches will do drills and they're only working the north direction, or they're working inside zone to the left, or they're working inside zone to the right. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I do that. But how much are you working on all the pulls on the east-west? How many of you working on logs? How many of you are working on kicks? How many of you are working on the straight vertical pass set versus the angles? You probably do that. You may not. I love the term. So I'm going to work at a southwest angle at left tackle against a wide rush. So it's a real easy coaching cue for the kids. And you don't really necessarily have to be going north, but that just means I'm going straight ahead. All right. And I'm working on that north direction on the football field for whatever play that I have, or I'm working south. So in your indie drills and how you're coaching your offensive linemen, I think it's important that you work these 8 angles. Do you have to do them every day? Maybe, maybe not. But you need to incorporate in your drills these 8 dominant directions. Because once your play is called, I have to react to what the defense does. Offensive line is a reactionary position. So I have to make sure that I'm working on those 8 angles. The first step for an offensive lineman, all right, is really the most efficient and explosive get out of their stance. All right, this is called the drive catch, which is the basis for that to happen. As opposed to stepping toward a defender on a run block or hopping out of a stance in a pass protection, linemen are going to be required to use a purpose action in order to play with power and explosiveness from snap to whistle. Excuse me. Drive catch is defined as putting force into the ground. So you're really driving that foot through the turf or through the grass, through the ground with that inside or post leg. And all I'm simply going to do is catch my body properly, kind of like I'm doing a bound or I'm doing a hang cling or a power cling or a box jump. I'm going to catch my body in an athletic position to be able to drive and catch it again. All right, for however many steps it takes for me to win. All right, and those are the terms that I use, all right, with that post and set leg, meeting my drive and my catch foot. It is not stepping toward a defender, as doing so often results in the lineman lunging forward to a defender and you lose power. This is what I see with my guys that aren't real good yet, or maybe some young guys that are coming in from your middle school programs, is they want to lunge at everything when it's, a run play, and they end up missing guys that are slant angle teams. All right. They don't dominate that angle. And a lot of that has to do with their first two steps to contact, which is the drive catch phase. So I spend a lot of time, 70% of my indie time is going to be the approach phase, which I'll get into in a minute, but it's going to be really working on getting my body set up for success. So to do that, your kids have to understand how important those first two steps are out of the stance, because most of the time on that second step, you're going to make contact. All right. So this is what I mean to relatively in pass protection as well. And I'm not going to get into a lot of pass pro today, but just so you know how I teach my pass pro, and there's a lot of drills you can do, as you guys know, but I want to get out of my stance. I want to create some space in pass pro, but I also want to obtain and maintain that half man leverage. The drive catch phase is present in run block progression, and it's present in pass pro. The only difference is what angle am I working, and I'm only working in 8 angles. All right. So if it's a quick game and you want to get their hands down, I may work at a different angle and I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive, but I still get out of my stance, create a little space, and I obtain a half man leverage. So it all translates into the run and the pass. To me, there are 5 traits to an offensive lineman athleticism. Strength. That doesn't mean you have to be a 400-pound bench presser. All right. I've coached buck 70, buck 80 guards that are really quick and athletic and will do really well. And I've coached guys that are going to Clemson. All right. Our right tackle this year signed with Clemson. Our left tackle is the #1 player in the state of Kentucky for the 21 class. It's nice to have those kids, but I don't have them every year. But they can control how strong they are. How much power do they have? How much mobility? All right. And those are all things you can work on. And then how efficient are they during practice, and how efficient are they in the game? All right. To me, that is a huge coaching indicator. How efficient are they in the way they approach their phases of run and pass pro? And then obviously the purpose. I feel like as a coach and as an offensive line coach, you have to create value and purpose for that position. I played football for a long time. I played since I was 7. I was always an offensive lineman because I'm a pretty big guy. The purpose of our team is O-line based. We don't run any plays that aren't O-line friendly. Everything that we put in is O-line friendly. We don't do anything that they're confused on. And we celebrate them first in all of our team meetings if they do a good job in a game where we dominate offensively and guys have good ball games. So the purpose, I think, is important for your team to understand, all right, what they need to get done for that position. Appreciate the craftsmanship. That's arguably the most overlooked component of offensive line play is the stance. We spend a lot of time on stance and starts. I don't care if it's July. It doesn't matter if it's December. We're able to work with our kids that don't play multi-sports year-round without pads. And then is it October? All right, we're still going to do stance and starts because a bad start is a bad end. O-line is a dictatorship, not a democracy. You know, you have to be a little bit different on how you approach the game at this position. We are a reactionary position, but you set the angle. You are the dictator. So if I'm playing against a 3-4 team and I'm the right tackle and I'm playing against a 4-eye and I know that he's slanting to the B gap, that's a hard block, especially if I got an inside zone or I got to cut off that guy without a lot of help. So I got to dominate that angle and I got to dictate to where I'm going to go and get out of my stance. And a lot of that starts with your indie work and understanding and putting them on that angle that they're working in that drive catch technique. So I think it's important that you have your offensive linemen create a dictatorship and not a democracy where it's, well, coach, I'm not sure, or, all right, well, what angle did you own? Because you got to own the angle. All right. You either won the angle or you didn't. And I think that's important that your kids understand that. Give them movement skills and give them knowledge. I love that. All right. Give them, we all know we're a Y generation. All right. So give them the movement skills, and that's going to empower them to have the knowledge. I encourage our guys after they get a rep to watch everybody else and to coach them up. I want them to be coaches too. So a lot of guys that have been with me for a year or two, they understand kind of what we're trying to do, and they'll get guys, especially our young incoming freshmen, they'll get them off to the side and help and empower them, which a lot of that is a culture thing, but a lot of it is O-line's important thing. Never lead a player astray by feeding them information they cannot explain. Don't just give them the how, but also the why. As a former player myself, and as anyone in a student type of relationship with a teacher can appreciate, knowing the why behind the instruction can be very powerful. So, for example, a proper stance. It's a foundation by which you use good offensive line play that you operate. It is vital that the weight of the lineman is evenly distributed so that he remains balanced. Too much forward weight makes it hard to pass or run block, and too much weight behind will not get a fast power, quick step, or a drive catch technique off of the line. I think that's important. We talk a lot about weight needs to be in the hip, not on the hand, and not on the toes. All right, we should get our knee, try to get it inside the ankle. If we have to widen our foot out a little bit, then we can do that to get our knee inside the ankle. Not every kid is going to be made the same. So we are a stance that is evenly in the hip. Now, if it's fourth and a foot and you're going quarterback sneak or a dive play, I tell them they can crowd the ball a little bit and we can get a little bit more hand in the dirt, and that's kind of a more situational thing. Splits in alignment, I don't know what you are for your system or whatever. For younger guys, a good distance, all right, might be a foot. For older guys, I don't know, like I said, you may be foot to foot, you may be 3 foot. But for us, we are going to do a foot with a guard and 3 foot by the tackle. And we're going to get a little bit more space to create, because we play a lot of odd front teams, to try to create a little bit more space with that 5 technique or 4-eye, whatever they're trying to do. But that's just for me. A lot of other high school programs might do 2 feet each. Whatever that is for you, that's up to you. But one thing I do suggest, and you may have heard of this, is the guard needs to be on the belt line of the center. A lot of kids in high school, at least I have this problem, they want to crowd the ball all the time. And you may want that depending on your system. But for me, I want to dominate angles. So if I get on the belt line of the center and I get off of the ball a little bit, that creates a little bit more space for me to dominate the angles that I need to dominate, which is only 8 weights. So it creates a lot better down block angles, a lot better inside zone angles, outside zone angles, pull angles. When you crowd the ball, you don't have that luxury. And the 2 things that we know are the snap count and where the ball's going. So we have to make sure that we properly align and get in the stance first. So when you get in a stance, all right, you want to make sure that you're in, all right, that balanced position. So with the run game progression, the first thing that we do and we talk about, and I spend a lot of time on, we spend, like I said, about 70% of our indie drills working on the first phase of the run block, which is called the approach. The approach is getting your body set up for success. And in my 16 years going into 17, 99.9% of errors that my guys have in a game, they get whipped, they don't get the block, they don't do well on that play. 99.9% of the time it's their first and their second step. Most of the time it's the first step, a poor first step. They didn't drive catch properly on the angle they needed to work. Or the second step, they raised up and just got whipped. So firing off the line is a science. It's not just an okay thing. It's not just I'm bigger than you macho type thing. It is science. The first part of the drive step is that side step that occurs following the snap of the ball. So if I'm stepping with my right foot, and I'll show you some film in a minute, then I'm going to snap off the ball. The power step is the offensive lineman's free step. That is often called our drive, all right, foot. And then I'm going to catch my body. The step advantage the offensive lineman gets because they know the snap count, okay? You know where the ball's going and you know the snap count. Here's the bad part. If I have a bad first step and I don't know and I don't dominate the angle that whatever play that you call, I am now going to be trailing. My advantage of knowing where the ball is going is now eliminated. Now I'm trying to play catch up. Some guys that are really good and are athletic and can do a lot of things that we can't coach, they can make up for that. Guys that are average, that are pretty good players, but they can't do a lot wrong, they have to be great technicians. We all wanted to be great technicians, but the average high school players, they can survive and they can do things for your systems, but they have to understand that they have to be a great technician. That doesn't mean they play a perfect game, but they have to make sure that you're driving and catching and dominating the angle that is needed for success. But the first phase to a run block progression is the approach. This is the most important piece, in my opinion. I think you should spend a lot of time on it because it's important. The third phase, or the next phase of run block progression, is called the fit and the finish. All right. So the fit is where you're going to have hand contact. All right. And you're going to drive the elbows through the defender to the chest. There are three parts to firing off the ball that must be repeated over and over and over again. It's a rhythm. It's kind of like a dance. I'm not a great dancer, but I can do this. So a rhythm should develop so that these three steps become second nature. Because remember, we're doing things that are unnatural. To coach a winning football player, repetition is important, beginning with these basics. So I'm going to drive and catch, all right, on my whatever that angle is. I'm going to drive off that, all right, whatever step that is, toe to heel, 6-inch, whatever you're doing. I use that drive catch technique, and I don't get into too much detail with it because every kid is made a little different, just to make sure they're balanced and they got weight distributed evenly to be able to punch through. And I have film on that here in a minute. So we do a lot of different drills, but we do EDDs like many of you. We're always going to do stanza starts and drive foot and a catch foot. All right. 1 inch of leverage, and you may have heard this, I'm sure you have, but 1 inch of leverage is 10 pounds of, body weight. So that's why some guys win. That's why a 220-pound lineman, if they fire out with speed and they drive catch properly on their angle, they can block a 300-pound nose guard or a 300-pound three technique. That's why those guys can win, because they're playing with great leverage. They're owning their angle, and they have no fear, and they're really using a good technique against those bigger guys. So you can win, and you can be a good offensive lineman at 200 pounds, 190, if you understand how to be a good technician. Now, you may not go to Clemson or the big-time program, and that's okay. You can still win a lot of games. But in that run block progression, there are three pieces to it. You have the approach, which is what I spend 70% of my time on personally. You have the fit, and then you have the finish. The finish is really the last component. It's about 5 to 10%. And that's just kind of an effort thing and a core value thing for us. And what we really highlight on film is that finish. All right. So that's when you're finishing guys down the field. It's a big play. It's a big block. You get a real quick push-pull technique, not a hold, and you're getting those pancake block finishes. I don't spend as much time on that as I do the approach, and then we work into the fit. 95% of my run block progression drills are going to be focused on the approach and the fit. The approach around 70. All right. And when I go visit other schools that do a really good job with offensive linemen, they do a lot of these similarities, in my opinion. When I go to programs where offensive line play is not real important and they don't have a focus on it, they just kind of line up down there and hit bags and go on to team. They don't really focus on the approach piece of really driving through the catch phase to be a good offensive lineman. So I'm going to share or talk a little bit about film. Hopefully it's not too bad to where you can see it. Hopefully you can see this. But these are some drills that we will do in the off season, and we also do them on the field in preseason camp. Some of you may have rubber boards. Some of you may have like T-boards. We do a lot with medicine balls where it's going to force and put the weight on the knee. That's going to force this drive foot, this left foot, all right, to really drive off of this foot. For this drill, I'm not super focused on the upper body. We're just really working on the technique of the drive, all right, where I'm driving through the inside ball of the foot, all right. So we're just going to line up on me, all right, and we're just going to get a quick right foot step, all right, and we're going to get it down in the ground, all right. So we're really working on driving through the turf right here on the inside ball of the foot, not being on the toe, and we're going to catch, all right, that right foot in the ground. So we're going to drive catch technique, all right, just for those first two steps. We spend a lot of time doing this drill, and we spend a lot of time on T-boards and shoots, simply working on the first and the second step. And then we can go into the fifth position, which I'll show you. So we'll go a right foot that way and also left foot, okay? So we'll go right foot, all right, and then left foot. So we'll get about 3 good reps, and then we'll flip it, all right? And again, we're mainly working on run block progression, all right, where we're working on the angle. All right, now we're going to incorporate the first 2 steps, working on kind of an inside zone or just a straight man block concept, where we're going to work a little bit more of an angle. All right, so right here, we're just going to work on the drive catch phase, but it might be a little bit wider angle. So we talked a little bit about those 8 angles earlier. So in my drills, I'm going to make sure that I work those 8 angles. When we do run block progression, it's more of the 4 angles forward. And when we're doing pass pro or pulls or traps, we're working the other 4 angles. But I'm going to make a coaching point of kind of what angle that we're trying to dominate for that play. So if we're running like an inside zone to the right, or Walker right here is trying to turn out, that would be what he's working right here. Okay, really working on drive catch phase. All right, stepping. I really like his second step right here. This is the kid that's going to Clemson. I'm sure you can tell he's a stud. He's a great kid, a really good football player, even better person. But he works at it, and he's going to be a great success in college. But really working on that drive catch phase where I'm going to drive that foot and catch. So the coaching point is toe to heel, but really every kid's going to be made differently. You know, his drive catch phase at 6'5", 6'6", is going to be different than this kid that's 5'10". I think it's important that your kids understand that. So you're going to drive and catch phase at your angle and drive, all right, to the best of your ability. So I'm going to drive catch, all right, just working on those first 2 steps, all right. And then we're going to flip it and go the other way, okay. Just flip the knee, really drive off that, drive off this shoe, all right. This kid's foot is a little bit too wide for me. I'd like to see more weight on the inside ball of the foot to where I can really drive through, all right, the ground and catch with this foot. And then it just turns into the second step on the punch. And then I'm going to drive through that right foot and catch with my left, or however, whatever angle that you're trying to get to. So we'll work that through. All right, everybody's going to go through that drill, right foot, left foot, 1 step, 2 steps. So you can kind of see what I'm doing there. But I really like them to put a lot of weight on that knee because it forces, all right, that drive foot to become second nature in their mind and in their body. Of course, we're never doing this in a game. But when I fire out of my stance, am I going to get this foot up in the air to where I'm driving that foot through the ground? Absolutely. So that's really simulating when I drive off the ball that I'm going to drive through that turf or grass or ground, and I'm going to catch through that inside phase. So that's really important, I think, that you drill that work. Okay? So those are kind of the first two steps that we do, all right, with owning that angle. Now, here is a simple drill with explosion of hips. So we'll drive this, all right, and incorporate the movement skill with it. All right. So again, we're going to drive that foot, all right, and work a duck walk mentality with tight elbows. All right. I'm a tight elbow through the rib cage to where I can punch with my palms. I'm not going to really punch out to where it extends my elbow out with my thumb. I want really no space in between the rib cage to where his elbow is tight right here to where I can explode on the defender. So we'll incorporate the first and the second step, and then we'll incorporate the movement with it. So first two steps of contact, really working on the drive and that catch phase. All right, toe to heel, really driving up through. Notice, all right, that they got the knee, all right, inside the ankle, and they have more power that way where they're not a sumo wrestler driving through. So notice his knee isn't out here. All right, the kinetic chain is driving from the foot up through the hip. All right, he's got a great forward lean bend where it's not over his toes. All right, to where he can now explode his hands through a defender. So if I got a pincher or I got a slanter, I'm in great shape. If I have a guy trying to tap me forward, I'm in great shape. If I have a guy trying to tap my outside shoulder, I'm in great shape. Look at my hips, all right? He's not in bad position. I'd like to see his hips just a little bit lower, all right, and try to drive through instead up on the toe. Notice Walker has his inside foot on the ground. That is ideal. That is what you want, all right, for a drive catch phase. Another drill that we'll work in off season is hip extension, kind of like the process of your hang clings. All right, but we'll take the med ball. These are not real heavy med balls, but we'll take it and work on the drive catch to where we're not false stepping. You can see that they're driving forward to where they don't step back. All right, and really extending those hips through. All right, so we're going to work our first two steps, our drive catch, and then continue on for about 5 yards. And what this is simulating, all right, is driving through that turf, all right, and really exploding through the chest of the defender. All right, so again, we're not going to do this in a game, but it's simulating, all right, that elbow. Obviously you're not ever going to have your hands this low in a game, but it's simulating that drive catch and explode through the defender. So in my mind, I'm bringing my hands tight and I'm exploding up through the defender. All right, I think that's important that your kids understand kind of what the drill is. All right, so they're just going to try to throw that med ball up a little bit and working on the drive catch phase. All right, so you can see here I got my knee inside the ankle. All right, try to get my inside foot on the ground. This kid is pretty good shape right here. I'd like to see his foot just a little bit lower. All right, and we're going to drive through with a tight elbow through the defender. So I got my elbows tight through the rib cage, and I'm going to explode that med ball through. And again, it's working on the run block progression, which is going to be the fit progression. So we go through that. We get a couple reps each, really driving through, all right, everything that we're trying to do, all right. And again, some kids are going to be made a little different than others with knee bends, but my coaching point, like this kid right here, you can tell, all right, his hips aren't very mobile. Look at the way his knees start. And this kid's a good kid, but he's not real flexible. So if you have a kid that's not flexible right here, then they might need to turn that foot out a little bit more to get their hips closed. All right. I don't really like this right here because he looks more like he's in a wrestling technique. All right. I'd like to see more of his knee inside the ankle bone right here. all right, to where I can now get my weight on the inside ball of the foot. This kid's not too bad right here. This kid's a big human. He's about 6'5", but he is at least bending. I'd like to see him get his chest up through the throw to simulate the fit. So you can kind of see how we do that with the throw and the fit phase with tight elbows. All right, and again, we're coaching that pretty hard. All right, now, these are called X bags. I don't know if you can afford them in your booster club. Well, Charles Bentley makes them. How many years that I hit a flat bag is numerous. It made no sense once I see these bags. These bags right here are made to contort the body style of a human being to where it is rounded, and it gives the indicator of these guys whether I punch through the drive fit phase. All right, if you don't punch these bags, it'll let you know and knock you back. All right, it's going to give you immediate feedback, kind of like a lead sled does with Rogers. So it's going to give you immediate feedback. All right, so with this, we're going to work our first 2 steps to a fit. All right, so we're going to drive catch, really drive right here off the right or left shoe. All right, so like we'll go right foot lead, left foot lead. All right, and we're going to really work on getting your elbows tight to your body. All right, turn your elbows slightly out, Z in the knee, drive catch phase with that right and left foot. All right, and we're going to work on that fit position. All right, so that's not too bad right there. All right, so we're going to go a right foot lead. All right, that's pretty good here. Knee is inside the ankle. Like to see a little bit more forward lean. All right, but Jagger here is not in bad shape. Like to see this heel down just a little bit. All right, that is really good. You got your knee inside the ankle flexed. So if he tries to attack that shoulder, I can really drive through. All right, if he goes inside, I might be in a little bit of trouble. That's why I got to get that heel down to be able to drive through his phase. Or if I'm just working a straight north angle mentality, I'm just trying to whip him. All right, but I love his elbows right here. His elbows are tight to the ribs. The elbow is not out here where you have all this space. Now this defender, and some of you guys probably coach D-line or have in the past, they can get that hand on the chest and control you. That's what they don't want. All right. These guys want you to leave them with space. You want to crowd their space. How do I crowd their space? It starts with these, ground up mentality. All right. You have to focus on the ground up. It's not that I bench 400 pounds. That's great. All right. But you have to focus on the ground up technique, all right, on what I'm trying to do. And I think that's really important in the way that you do your drills. So we'll do that. All right. We'll work that first 2 steps to the fit. All right. So we'll go through all that. First 2 steps to the fit. All right. We'll go right foot. All right. Left foot lead. So we're really drive catch technique here. All right, right foot, left foot. So we'll go through that and really work on that drive catch phase. Then we'll incorporate movement with it. Okay, so we'll incorporate movement. I'll get to that here in just a second. All right, so then after we get that first 2 steps to the fit, we'll work movement skill on it. All right, really working on tight elbows. All right, knee inside the ankle bone. All right, Jagger right here does a really good job. All right, this kid right here is the #1 player in the state of Kentucky for the 21 class. He has offers from the top 5 college football programs in the nation. He's super athletic, but his knee bend and mobility is outstanding. All right, and that's because of his character and his work. But then a lot of our other kids right here, all right, like this kid right here was just a high school player. All right, which is fine. That's what many of us have. All these 8 angles, all right, are worked in this drill. All right, so you can do pass pro the same way. All right, but I like his elbows right here. Okay, he's got really good elbows. He gets a lot of pancake blocks because he's really talented and strong, but a lot of it has to do with he has excellent elbows. I'd like to see his hips down just a little bit and get this foot down in the ground a little bit more instead of up on the toe. All right, and that's something that he struggles with. All right, because when guys slant inside, sometimes he trails. All right, So that has a lot to do with your first two steps to contact. But that is kind of the run block phase that we work on and kind of putting it all together full speed. All right. So kind of dominating those angles. We'll go a right foot drive catch phase and a left foot drive catch phase. And then we'll also put the bag down here and work down block angles or trap angles. All right. But it's really the same thing. The only difference is what angle am I going? So if I'm down blocking right here, all right, and I put the bag right here, I'm just trying to dominate that angle. This technique doesn't change. Now all I do is open up my hip more and I catch with that foot. All right, so I'm going to drive through and I'm going to catch with this foot, or I'm going to drive through and I'm going to catch with that foot. I think that's important that you're coaching those little points, all right, for that. So we're going to go through all that. And again, you can do this in summer camp, spring ball. We're able to work with our kids some in the winter that don't play other sports. That's when this is occurring. And we're just going to work on that drive catch technique where we're going to drive the elbows through. All right. You can see here, we're going a left foot lead right here. All right. Or excuse me, right foot. All right. But notice his feet. All right. They're going to be toe to heel. They're going to drive catch phase to where I can now get it in the ground. All right. And look at, for example, this right here, this is what you don't want all the time, but what drill is that right there? That's the med ball drill. All right, so that's exactly why we do that med ball drill. Look at this foot. All right, that's like putting this knee on the med ball. And I'm driving through this foot through the defender. And I'm going to drive him to the whistle blows and play really hard for that 3 to 5 seconds. So that is a drill that translates into offensive line play. It's the same thing on a T-board. It's the same thing, whatever that you have. You could even do it on the line. Like you could have the line right here and do it. Everybody has different things. So you're going to drive catch through that phase. All right. So explosion, elbows. This kid's a little bit high. He doesn't have as good flexibility. But you're going to drive through the first two steps. So that's pretty much it for run block progression for me. Again, that is my contact information. If having questions here in a minute, I'll stop sharing. But again, the run block progression is approach, the fit, and the finish. There's 3 components. I would spend most of your practice time on the approach piece, and it might be 10 minutes. You can get through those pretty quickly, depending on your equipment and how many kids that you have. But really coaching on that kinetic chain from the ground up with that drive catch phase. If you want to talk any more pass pro, I didn't really have time to do that. We can do that anytime. You can call me, hit me up on Twitter, email me, whatever you guys need. Love to talk about even offensive systems, kind of what you do. We're a spread RPO offense. So anything that you would like to share, talk about, please let me know. And I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys today.